Lenovo's Legion Slim 7i is kind of like a thinner and lighter version of their popular Legion 7i gaming laptop, but compromises have to be made to get a more portable machine. That said, it is actually better compared to the bigger Legion 7i in some ways. So let's check it out in this review. I've got the Onyx Grey finish here, but there's also Storm Grey, which is a lighter color. Unlike the Legion 7i, its bigger brother, there's no RGB light bar on the front, or lighting in the air vents, or on the lid. The lid, interior, and bottom panel are all aluminum with an anodized finish. The whole machine feels nice and well built, but the edges could feel a little sharp if you brush up against them. There's only minor flex to the keyboard deck thanks to the all-metal build, and the lid was fairly rigid too. But while doing this, I noticed that it's not too hard to slide it around. The rubber feet underneath just aren't super grippy, but it doesn't move around when using it normally. The screen goes the full way back for sharing, and it was easy to open with one finger as the middle part of the lid sticks out a little. The hinge seems sturdy when ripping it open hard. The lid still feels easy and smooth to open, and only wobbles a little when typing hard. It feels slim and portable to carry, but Lenovo only lists the height at the thinnest point. Granted, I didn't find the rear to be that much thicker. The laptop alone weighs 2.3 kilos or 5 pounds, increasing to 3.1 kilos or 6.9 pounds with the 230 watt power brick and cables for charging. Lenovo's website notes that it's available with either a 230 watt power brick, like I've got here, or a smaller and lighter 170 watt brick, which is probably what's available with lower spec options. My configuration has Intel's Core i7-12700H processor, Nvidia's RTX 3060 graphics, 16 gigs of DDR5 memory, and a 16-inch 2560 by 1600 165Hz screen with G-Sync. But you can customize it and check current prices with the link below the video. My laptop has a 1080p camera above the screen in the middle, but some regions have 720p. There's no Windows Hello Face Unlock, and you can use the switch on the right-hand side to physically disconnect the camera for privacy. Here's how the camera and microphones look and sound, and here's how it sounds while I'm typing on the keyboard. And as you can see, there's only a little screen wobble. My keyboard has perky RGB backlighting, but there's also a white-only option, and all keys and secondary functions get lit up. Keyboard brightness can be changed between 3 levels or turned off by holding function and pressing the up or down arrow keys, but you can adjust between 9 different levels through the Vantage software. This also lets you swap between 6 built-in lighting profiles, and you can also hold function and press spacebar to change through these too. Spectrum is used to manage the RGB lighting, and we can customize each of the 6 profiles with different built-in effects or manually set different keys to whatever color you like. Personally, I like typing on Legion keyboards, and I thought this one felt good, though a little less clicky feeling compared to the bigger Legion 7i. The glass touchpad is smooth, clicks down anywhere, and is accurate to click with. The power button is above the keyboard and doubles as a fingerprint scanner, which I found to work quickly. The left side has an air exhaust vent and 2 Type-C ports. The one closer to the back is Thunderbolt 4, while the one closer to the front is USB 3.2 Gen 2. The right side has an air exhaust too, as well as a 3.5mm audio combo jack, the camera disconnect switch, and an SD card slot. The rest of the ports are found on the back in between more air exhaust vents. From left to right, we've got an HDMI 2.1 output, 3 USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type-A ports, followed by the slightly smaller rectangular power input on the right. I really like that the port icons on the back get lit up, so you can easily see where you're plugging a cable in when sitting in front of the machine without needing to turn it around, regardless of the lighting situation of your room. You can hold the function key and press the letter U to turn these on or off. I also found that they automatically turn off when you unplug the power, regardless of if you already had them on before plugging in. Now, if you've got Optimus on, then the front Type-C and rear HDMI ports connect directly to the Nvidia graphics. However, the Thunderbolt 4 Type-C port connects to the Intel integrated graphics. But then if you turn Optimus off through either the Vantage software or BIOS, then the Thunderbolt port does not offer any display output at all. And you can't use Advanced Optimus to change that. We also confirmed that the HDMI port port could run a 4K external screen at 120Hz 12-bit with G-Sync. Both of the Type-C ports on the left can be used to charge the laptop with up to 135 watts, an increase from last year's 100 watt limit. But you can only use the maximum 135 watts if your charger supports 20 volts 6.75 amps. So Lenovo don't seem to be using the PD 3.1 standard. This means that this 140 watt charger I've got from Ugreen maxes out at 100 watts when connected, and I suspect that would be the case with most other modern chargers too. Lenovo do of course have their own 135 watt charger, so you might need to buy that if you want to fully power this machine over Type-C. Of course, when I say fully power, I mean up to 135 watts, which is the limit. You're always going to get more power using the full power brick, but unfortunately this limit means that anytime I've tested performance with a Type-C charger connected, it's with the 100 watt limit. Getting inside requires unscrewing 8 Phillips head screws, all the same length. This was probably the hardest laptop to open out of 200 plus machines. I actually bent the metal in 2 different spots just trying to get my pry tools in. If you manage to get inside, we've got the large battery down the front, the installed M.2 SSD just above, a single memory slot just above that, a Wi-Fi 6E card to the left of those, and a second M.2 storage slot on the right. The Wi-Fi performance was pretty good when compared against other gaming laptops, though the same card in this year's slightly thicker Legion 7i was performing better. Due to the smaller and thinner size of the laptop, there's 8 gigs of DDR5 memory soldered to the motherboard, which cannot be upgraded. The single slot in mine came with an 8 gig single rank X16 stick installed. Lenovo notes that it supports up to 24 gigs, so the soldered 8 gigs plus a 16 gig stick, though they note that this is based on configurations they sell it with. Unfortunately, I don't have any 32 gig DDR5 sticks to try and max it out, but I'd be surprised if 40 gigs doesn't work. The installed 1TB NVMe M.2 PCIe Gen 4 SSD was performing quite well, and the second M.2 slot supports 4 lanes of Gen 4 as well. The speed from the SD card slot was alright, but the card didn't click in and stuck out quite a bit, so don't bump it. The upgradability score loses a point for missing a RAM slot, and I took off the full point from ease of access as I found it so hard to open. If you don't care about how hard it is to get inside, then the score would have been a 5. The speakers are found underneath on the left and right corners towards the front. I thought the speakers sounded pretty good for its size. Definitely above average for a gaming laptop with some bass. It gets loud enough, and there's only minor wrist rest vibration. The Latencymon results weren't great in our usual 5-minute test while idling. My Slim 7i is powered by the largest possible 99.9 watt-hour battery, but there's also a smaller 71 watt-hour option that weighs 200 grams or 0.4 pounds less, so expect less runtime with that one. We've got the option to press the function plus our shortcut to lower the screen's refresh rate down from 165Hz to 60Hz, which will give us more battery life. Unfortunately, this doesn't automatically happen when you disconnect and reconnect the charger like MSI and Asus laptops. It's possible to get an extra hour and a half of runtime in the YouTube video playback test simply by using the shortcut to run the screen at 60Hz. Given this is such a simple change that's worth doing, I've used the better result when comparing it with others. At nearly 10.5 hours, it's one of the better results from a gaming laptop that we've got, especially considering that it's got an Intel CPU. Generally speaking, Intel-based gaming laptops don't last anywhere near as long, so the Slim 7i is impressive in this regard. You still get the option in Vantage to limit the maximum charge level to 75 to 80%, which should help improve the lifespan of the battery by not keeping it fully charged all the time. This can't be used with rapid charge at the same time, which charges the battery faster. Let's check out thermals next. There's one thick heat pipe shed between the CPU and GPU with Lenovo's standard thermal compound underneath. There are 2 fans which exhaust air out of both the left and right sides, as well as out of the vents on the back. We can see there are plenty of holes underneath where the fans are for air intake. The Vantage software lets us change between different performance modes, which from lowest to highest are quiet, balance, and performance. Balance mode also has an optional AI setting, which is meant to provide an optimal experience in supported games. Think best performance without the fans going too loud. You can also press the function and Q shortcut to change between the 3 performance modes, and the color of the power button will change so you can easily tell which is currently in use, as noted here. Performance mode can't be used when running on battery power. We've also got the option of turning on a GPU overclock through Vantage Vantage too. You can customize it here, but we've left it default anytime it was tested, and it only works in balanced or performance modes when plugged in. At the time of recording in early October 2022, there's no fan control available in this laptop through the software that's built in. There is, however, the Legion Zone software, which does offer some basic control. Unfortunately, right now, it's only available in Chinese, so hopefully we see these features integrated into Vantage in future. The BIOS has this option where you can lower the quiet level to 3 different RPM levels, though we've done all testing here with the default level 1 applied, and honestly, just sitting here right now with the laptop running on battery, I can't even hear it at all, so I think that's probably going to be fine. And not to mention, it's not even on the lowest quiet mode, it's on balance. The internal temperatures were cool when just sitting there idle. The rest of the results are from combined CPU and GPU stress tests, which aim to represent a worst-case full-load scenario. The GPU was just barely hitting thermal throttling in performance mode, as Nvidia limits this to 87 degrees Celsius. The cooling pad I test with, linked below the video, was able to lower temps quite a bit. These are the clock speeds being reached during the same stress tests. The lowest quiet mode actually had the best CPU performance, as per the blue bars, but that's because the GPU doesn't need as much power in this mode, which is why the 3060 in the green bar is clocking lower there. The GPU clock speeds in performance mode barely improved with the cooling pad. Again, the thermal throttle there was very minor, at least with this specific test within my specific ambient room temp, because the GPU was maxed out at 100 watts with or without the cooling pad. 25 watts for the i7-12700H isn't amazing, but in games with a higher resolution, like our 2560 by 1600 screen, I suspect prioritizing GPU power is the move. Here's how an actual game performs with the different performance modes in use. Balance mode with a 100 watt Type-C charger was significantly lower compared to just using the regular 230 watt power brick, at least at 1440p. Interestingly, the AI mode was a little behind, which wasn't the case with the Legion 5 or Legion 7i. Then performance mode was the same with or without the GPU overclock applied at 69 FPS. Nice. Although the CPU wasn't running above 25 watts with the GPU going hard at the same time, a CPU-only workload like Cinebench was able to boost it much higher. Testing with a 100 watt Type-C charger connected resulted in the CPU running with a 45 watt TDP in this test, while performance mode with the proper charger doubled this at 90. It's not the best result we've got from an i7-12700H, but it's also in a relatively thin machine like a couple of other near scoring results. At least it's not lower like Razer's Blade options. And the Slim 7i was still able to beat other larger thicker models with 12th gen Intel processors. AMD's Ryzen 6000 was a fair amount lower comparatively, but this changes if we unplug the charger and instead run purely off of battery power. The Slim 7i was one of the worst performing laptops now, along with a number of other Intel 12th gen options. Those AMD machines that were lower while plugged in are now all further ahead when running on battery power. I suspect this would be the case with the Ryzen version of the Slim 7 too. Most laptops I test are in the low 30 degrees Celsius range on the keyboard at idle, and the Slim 7i was a little cooler than this. It gets warmer with the stress tests running, but wasn't uncomfortable. The higher balanced mode is warmer, but still not what I'd call hot. The highest performance mode gets warmer still. The middle is approaching hot feeling now, but the WASD keys and wrist rest were only warm, so not a problem when playing games. But the fans are also louder now too. Let's have a listen. The fans were quiet when just sitting there idle. It gets louder in the higher modes as you'd expect. More performance needs more cooling, but maxed out in performance mode was a little quieter compared to most other gaming laptops I've tested. Just before we get into the game benchmarks, let's check out the screen, given that's what you're going to be staring at when playing games. It's got a mux switch which can be toggled through the Vantage software by changing the GPU working mode to DGPU mode and rebooting, but you probably won't need to use that because it's also got advanced Advanced Optimus, which means you can turn Optimus on or off without rebooting. The Slim 7i is available with these different screen options. I've got the 2560 by 1600 165Hz screen with G-Sync, but there's also a lower 1920 by 1200 option that's dimmer. The same one I've got but with higher 240Hz refresh rate, and a 165Hz mini LED panel that gets super bright, but doesn't have G-Sync, so maybe better for creators than gamers. My screen has decent color gamut for a gaming laptop, but I'd want more if you're also doing professional content creation. Don't get me wrong, the screen looks nice, but this is a gaming panel first and foremost. The higher resolution screen is advertised at 500 nits, and ours was measured at 544 nits at full brightness, but it can also get extremely dim at lower levels too. The Vantage software lets you enable or disable overdrive mode, which affects screen response time. Overdrive is enabled by default, which results in a 4.65 millisecond average gray-to-gray response time, lower than the 6 milliseconds needed for transitions to occur within the 165Hz refresh window. This introduces some overshoot and undershoot though, which you can remove by disabling overdrive mode, but this increases the response time a little to 7.44 milliseconds. It's a great result when compared to other gaming laptops, and it's using the exact same panel as this year's Legion 5i Pro and Legion 7i. The total system latency is the amount of time between a mouse click and when a gunshot fire appears on the screen in CSGO. Again, not the best result, but there are plenty of other more expensive machines that were slower. Backlight bleed wasn't looking great, especially from the bottom left, and we did notice this when viewing darker content, but this will vary between laptops. Now let's find out how well this year's Legion Slim 7i compares against other laptops in games. Although we've got the 2560 by 1600 resolution screen here, all testing has been done at either standard 1080p or 1440p, as this is just what we have data for the purposes of comparing. But if you want to see how this laptop performs in 15 games at all setting levels with features like ray tracing, FSR, or DLSS, then check out the link in the description after this one for my game benchmark video. Cyberpunk 2077 was tested the same on all laptops, and I've got this year's Legion Slim 7i shown by the red highlight. It's still above 60 FPS at high settings, at least at the lower 1080p resolution. It's doing better compared to the RTX 3070 in last year's TUF F15 from Asus, which is also a thinner laptop design, though that one only had a quad-core CPU. I'm still waiting to get this year's version. The Slim 7i is ahead of other lower-powered 3060 laptops like Acer's Nitro 5, and this year's Legion 5 with higher GPU power limit was around 10% faster. We've got a different selection of laptops at the higher 1440p resolution, as this level of hardware is on the border of what we'd actually test here. It's at least beating last year's Asus Zephyrus G14, which had an even lower-powered 3060. Granted, that is a smaller 14-inch model. Red Dead Redemption 2 was tested with the game's benchmark tool. The lower wattage 3060 in the Slim 7i is close to the full-powered RTX 2070 from a couple of years ago. Not bad. The Legion 5 was reaching a 10% higher frame rate here too, though its 3060 does also have a 30% higher GPU power limit. It's not far off 60 FPS at 1440p high settings. And don't forget, we're not using features like FSR or DLSS in comparison tests to boost performance. Control is a GPU-heavy game, and the 100W 3060 was 10% ahead of the last-gen 2070 this time. Granted, at 1080p, some of that difference may also be due to the jump from Intel 9th gen to 12th gen CPU. This year's Legion 5 with higher-powered 3060 was 16% ahead in average frame rate now, and a number of lower-powered 3060s weren't far behind. This game seems to favor Nvidia hardware, which is why the Slim 7i is now ahead of the Radeon 6800S at 1440p for the first time now. And this year's Legion 5 was 18% faster now, but don't forget, it's also a thicker machine to accommodate its higher-powered 3060. Here are the 3D Mark results for those that find them useful. Now for some content creator tests. Adobe Premiere was tested with the Puget Systems benchmark tool, and the Slim 7i was scoring surprisingly well here. It's close to the Legion 5i Pro just below it, which is an objectively faster machine, both in terms of CPU and GPU performance. So not sure what the deal is there. Adobe Photoshop likes single-threaded performance, and this one isn't far off compared to other 12th gen i7 laptops. Only really the higher tier i9s are hitting much higher scores. GPU power usually matters more in DaVinci Resolve, but the Slim 7i was still still able to come out ahead of other higher-powered 3060 laptops. Unlike the others, the 12700H objectively performs better, so this must be giving it the win, despite the lower 100W GPU power limit. The Blender score was a little under higher-powered 3060s, but ahead of the 3050 Ti, so right where you'd expect. We've also tested SpecViewPerf, which tests out various professional 3D workloads. The BIOS has more options compared to other gaming laptops, like ASUS, but not quite as much customization as MSI's advanced BIOS. Many of the options in here can also be modified through the Vantage software, but there are some nice extras in here, like changing the fan modes. Linux support was tested with an Ubuntu 22.04 live CD. By default, the keyboard, touchpad, and camera worked, but the Wi-Fi and speakers weren't working out of the box. Probably needs extra drivers. The keyboard shortcuts for adjusting performance modes, keyboard lighting, and effects all work as that's set in firmware. Let's discuss pricing and availability next. This will change over time, so refer to the link below the video for updates, as Lenovo are known to frequently run sales. At the time of recording, in the US, the Legion Slim 7i starts at $1,400 for the RTX 3050 Ti configuration, while the RTX 3060 I've got is just $80 more. Honestly, considering how much better the 3060 performs compared to the 3050 Ti, and that it has 2 gigs of extra VRAM, this is probably a better option. It does have a lower resolution screen, but you could argue that that would make it even easier to run games on. All things considered, I do think that the Legion Slim 7i is a nice portable gaming laptop. The biggest annoyance that I had with it was just how difficult it was to actually open it up and get inside. I shouldn't be bending metal in multiple places just to get in. And considering there's just one memory slot inside, as it's got 8 gigs soldered to the motherboard, maybe there's less reason for you to want to get in there anyway. I suppose that's just one of the limits of having a thinner device. I could easily see myself picking this laptop over the larger Legion 7i, because I only personally use laptops if I'm actually traveling, and portability is pretty important to me, more so than getting the absolute best performance in any case. Combined with its excellent battery life, especially for an Intel model, and the fact that it's still able to run games well on the 3060, it's not as if it's going to be a bad time. And despite the RTX 3060 running at 100 watts, I still found it adequate to run games at the 2560 by 1600 resolution. Just make sure you use features like FSR and DLSS for the best experience where possible. But that said, games would of course be even easier to run if you spent less money and got the 1920 by 1200 screen instead. It just might not look quite as nice, as it's not quite as bright. You can find out how well the Slim 7i performs in 15 games in this video over here next. We've tested it with features like ray tracing, DLSS, and FSR at all setting levels, so you can really get an idea of what it's capable of. Or if you don't mind a thicker machine, then check out my full review on the bigger Legion 7i over here next, as that's much more powerful. I'll see you in one of those videos next.